On today's MotA-Apes, Richard is lucky that he was late to the conversation because it's a spicy pooper talk.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Ready to the divine bomb.
The only good human is a dead human! There is fire, there is smoke.
The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet movies, 1 minute at a time. And I told myself before we got going, don't bring up poop to Sean. Don't say it, but surely I did.
Don't start it.
It's not a MotA-Apes week without some poop talk.
Well, there are a few subjects in the world that my friend Sean cannot resist.
Passionate about?
Well, passionate or can't resist. And poop talk is probably top of that list. Babylon 5.
Uh-huh.
And then it starts immediately after that dwindling down, which, by the way, we are recording this right after the death of Mira.
Larry King and Mira Furlan.
Yeah, I forgot to text you, Sean, and you know, just
Todd did, so that's what I woke up to that day.
Yeah,
you hadn't actually heard about the news yet?
Well, no, I woke up and I picked up my phone and saw Todd's text.
I had to get up earlier that day. I had a broadcast coming in from somewhere far away, and that was the very first thing on my phone was that she had passed away. So I immediately thought of you. I don't do the same with my bowel movements, so that's a very good thing. But, you know, I knew once we talked about it, Sean would have to make the intro poop reference. So for all our listeners, I'm sorry. Now,
what? In my defense, you did start it.
I did start it. Now, Richard, I teased Sean during the break that I want to talk a bit before we get going about Bobby Porter, who plays young Cornelius, because as I had more time to dig into his career, wow. So I'm going to get to the second phase of his career in a second, but this is a man who has been on a number of things, namely, do you guys remember the relaunch of Land of the Lost in the early 90s? Do you remember that at all?
Yeah.
He played the character of Stink, the little ape boy.
Which
was their, what was the name of the original one? Chani or something like that?
Chaka.
So he's basically their version of Chaka for this.
Wow.
He was in the Apes TV series. He was in the original Poseidon Adventure. He was also in the remake of the Poseidon Adventure. He was in a very odd show that I remember, Quark, from the 70s. Kind of a weird space show. And in fact, I'm going to go over and see if I can read its log line because I remember this, Misadventures of an Outer Space Garbage Collector and His Crew. I remember that. It was very odd. But the really interesting thing is that he then, so as an actor, he had, let me scroll back to that, he had 28 credits. Not bad, right? He's been a producer, a cinematographer, a writer. However, he has a second phase of his career, and he has 132 credits for that as a stunt coordinator. He oversaw stunts on The Office, Malcolm in the Middle, Batman Forever. He stunt doubled as young Bruce Wayne. The Wonder Years.
Wow.
Yeah, this man, wow. He was in E.T., the extraterrestrial. He did stunts in that. So this man, holy crap, has been all over the place in production. So we just wanted to give the nod of the cap to Bobby Porter. There we go. So let's move on. We're at minute 13. Sean, why don't you tell us what's happening?
All right, we start at minute 13 with every ape in sight turning towards a potential fight and ends with Aldo giving the classroom a taste of his anger.
All right, here comes minute 13, Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Teacher! You've spoken the unspeakable. In all our years of slavery to mankind, the word no was the one word we were electrically conditioned to fear. Caesar has forbidden you its utterance in perpetuity. An ape may say no to a human, but a human may never again say no to an ape. Tell him you're sorry, Abe, and go home while you've still got a home to go to. I'll put in a good word for you with Caesar.
General Aldo, I'm sorry. The writing you destroyed was by Caesar's son. I did not want you to suffer Caesar's anger.
What do I care for Caesar's anger? Let me give you a taste of mine.
As of minute 13, we have a villager's worth of apes and humans.
Okay, so we get the follow-up to the... No, we get a bunch of looks as all the apes look on.
We get like a orangutan doing the Gape Ape at like 2 seconds in.
Yeah, it's everybody. I almost expect those kind of like, in the 60s and 70s where they would zoom back and forth.
And everybody just whips their head.
What? So we get a lot of that, but at least in this minute, we cover the explanation from Virgil, why. It's very awkward, again, that he conveniently is there to hear it and be able to be the one to tell us a rule we don't know to this point. It might have been nice at the first when we heard the lawgiver reciting the history, if maybe we had seen a scroll of commandments, humans can't tell ape no, or whatever it may be.
Well, heck, I mean, it doesn't even have to come. I mean, the fact that he's explaining it to the teacher who already should know this.
Right.
Yep.
It should be Aldo saying, apes can say no to humans, humans never say no to apes, or something like that. And so as your punishment, blah, 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 I'm going to tear up your classroom. Instead of having convenient, it's when you turn on the television and the plot point that you need is right there on TV, on the news.
Yes.
Which never happens. Virgil walking by to explain, no, this is why you don't say no. It should be Aldo doing it.
I totally agree. If Aldo had done that, and then Abe could have been like, I know, and I'm so sorry, and then he loses his shit.
I forgot in the heat of the moment because you're destroying Caesar's son stuff.
I had forgotten in the heat of the moment because I was trying to remember my name that I'd forgotten, and I keep forgetting everything.
Yeah.
I like your point. I do believe that Aldo should have said, it's the word you cannot say to me, something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
This is a moment where it would have been good for Virgil to have been in the classroom because he could have explained this to the young chimps, his dialogue.
Yeah.
If he'd been able to kind of pull aside, this is why we don't do this kind of thing to the kids, as opposed to the teacher who should already know.
So like while Aldo's destroying the classroom, Virgil pulls them all aside and says, and so you see in the background, Aldo destroying it while Virgil's saying, this is because humans used to command apes, we will no longer allow them to say no or whatever.
And then you have in order to get the teacher out of the classroom, you just kind of have one more something to have Aldo to react to get him upset.
I wonder, do they just mean the actual word no? Can they say negative to them, or is it the connotation no? Because if that's the case, there are lots of things that really just wouldn't make sense. They come riding up to me and say, "Have you seen the prisoner that we're looking for?" And I have not seen the prisoner. How do I say? No, I have not seen the prisoner.
You just say, I have not seen the prisoner. You're not allowed to say no. No human can say it, so it must be, nope. Maybe nope is the word they
humans
can use.
Are not allowed to say words with the letter E in it, so everybody really think about it.
If they really wanted to kind of do more parallel, and again, you said they were trying to move away from the political connotations. No could have actually been a derogatory word that is then pulled back somehow,
Yeah.
But they're not doing that. They're using no, something very, very basic and something very simple to drive this point home as opposed to something derogatory. So they're taking a little bit of the political context out. Otherwise, they would have used a derogatory term for Aldo or the chimps or something that the teacher would have said. Whether it was actually, derogatory or not, something that would then raise the hackles of everybody and cause all that to go. But I don't know.
I like the ideas of fixing this where the conversation's internal to the classroom. I like inserting Virgil there. We've already talked about that. He serves a much better purpose being a part of the classroom as a secondary teacher, or at least someone. I love that idea of talking to the kids, being the one to calm it down. Or perhaps maybe there's a deeper understanding where he tries to explain to Aldo the reason that we say no is in this context. He didn't mean it, if he's trying to calm the situation.
Right. And you still get the exact same breakdown of why no is such a bad word. It would just make more sense rather than him telling the teacher who should already know this. The other thing, we open up this moment where he goes, no, Aldo, no. like the whole village reacts. Like it's one of those things where you should
I know.
you should hear birds fly
Everybody-
out of a tree. You know, that kind of a moment.
You need a record. You need a record scratch moment at that point. Yeah.
So even though Virgil was walking away from what appeared to be the classroom, he's suddenly now a part of the classroom, and everybody just kind of reacts to the moment where you go, oh, where you have those hands, fly up from different parts of the area. It was a little surprising.
I do think that I'm going to have to go pull video of Gape Ape again and edit him into this moment, because he does belong.
He's
to
like,
what?
Oh, that'd actually be really good. You can put it behind the classroom trees over there where the other gorillas are lined up on the bench.
So it's the first moment, though, of this film where I don't like how something's shot. And that is once Aldo decides to start tearing the classroom apart, it's very observational instead of you're not feeling his anger. He'll toss things instead of at the lens.
The
throws
camera,
it away.
the slate is not being tossed at the camera. You're just behind him as he's lightly pushing everything over.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing when you watch so many films like that. If you watch from a making of the film perspective, and what I'm thinking of, as I've said before, how much my kid loves the Hunger Games films. There's a moment where in one of the making of where Jennifer Lawrence tosses water on Woody Harrelson, and when you're watching the making of it, it looks almost like, dude, was that a rehearsal? Because she barely throws the water. But then when you cut the film and the angle that's there, it makes it look much more aggressive. And
you want the camera inside the riot instead of outside watching it.
Right. And so whenever you do it like this, you get that feeling like what I said about the Hunger Game film. It comes off as, there's no immediacy to this. There's no danger to this. The music tells me everything I need to know. The context of what's going on does, but the shots don't. And I find that a little surprising, because Mr. Thompson is very good at giving those angles and all that. But here we go with one of my first complaints of, look, this is where time constraints and budget constraints don't allow you to do that.
And to your point, that's what it looks like. I mean, the teacher is leaning down off of a branch outside to talk to Virgil.
Right.
And the minute Virgil tells him to go apologize, all of a sudden we're in that wide shot of the classroom from the outside, and the teacher has to pull himself up behind some trees to turn to face Aldo to apologize. And we're still completely obstructed from that tree view on the outside, that we don't even really see the teacher apologize.
Right.
And so Aldo's desk flipping and everything else, and the other gorillas reacting, is the same thing. It's from that weird outside shot where we don't actually get to see the intensity of the moment, or the teacher pleading, or any of that kind of. This would have been a perfect moment to go back inside that classroom. I also kept thinking, when they were flipping all the tables and all the stuff, I'm like, hey guys, those are breakable. Those are from Pier 1.
Yeah,
If you flip that over, it's going to fall apart.
We have to reset after this.
That's wicker.
Be careful, guys.
Well, so all it would take was one or two shots within the scene itself. Something being tossed and the chimpanzees scurrying, something like that, to where now there's danger. His anger brings upon danger. And this is what I really don't understand. You've already had camera setups within the context of that set that would be much more aggressive where they cut in here. So there's no reason, after you did the internal shots of the scenes over the shoulders and whatnot, that you could not pull a camera back with the same lighting setup just 5 feet and then tear the room apart. There's no reason you couldn't do it, except that it feels like what they did is they thought, we don't want to have to your point, this is Wicker. What if he breaks it? So they blew the setup as the final part of this. They didn't shoot that any other time. It's kind of disappointing. It's, it gets here and you're supposed to see his anger, but you don't feel it.
Right.
Well,
I mean, for some reason, these were two different pieces of the set. The exterior of the classroom is different than the actual interior of the classroom. I mean, they still could have gone inside the interior of the classroom, but maybe they got that exterior shot of this different classroom and the action, and they just decided to use that instead of edits that were taking place inside maybe a secondary classroom. I'm just guessing.
Well, I think back to, I know they did it some on the original film, and there was another film they did too. And then you can have movies where you have a backup camera. I know what it was I was thinking of Beyond Apes, is that I was watching the movies that made us, that little series on Netflix, and they talk about the making of Home Alone. And one of